Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Alabama's depth at wide receiver got a boost today, probably more so than depth. This guy might be a starter. Oregon State graduate transfer Richard Mullaney will use his final year of eligibility to play for the Crimson Tide. He's eligible immediately. Mullaney will no doubt make an impact. He had 83 receptions and 5 receiving touchdowns in his career in Corvallis with the Beavers. So this guy got experience, got some ability, and for an inexperienced core of receivers, he's going to be a big help. With that, we say good evening, everybody. Welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris. Remember, for the latest on the Crimson Tide 24/7, go to TiderInsider.com. Our program, as I said, is always brought to you by Buffalo Rock. Tonight, we've got icy cold Pepsi Next. Katarina just took them out of the freezer, Rodney, about 5 minutes ago. That's that championship taste right there. Remember, Pepsi Next. All that great Pepsi flavor, 2/3 less calories than regular Pepsi, only 60 calories per 12-ounce can. Pick some up the next time you're at your local grocery store. You'll love it as much as I do. Well, Rodney, we see Mullaney coming in for this year, but Nick Saban continues to add quality players for the future. And he's continuing to build for the future with more and more commitments for 2016. Of course, already several 2017 commitments as well. Let's talk about the latest commitments for this 2016 class, beginning with one over the weekend, Georgia tight end Miller Forristall. Now, I'm not a big guy on stars, and I know you're not either. Only a 3-star, according to the recruiting services, but very athletic, 6'5", 215. Could stand to add some weight, but this is a guy that can get downfield and go get the football.
Well, the thing about it is that you really don't see in all of those numbers is the fact that he played quarterback half the season. He only played tight end the last half of the season, caught 33 passes, had 8 touchdowns. He's a guy, like you said, Gary, he can gain some weight. He's an athletic guy who can get up. He's got some jumps to him, and he's got really good hands. He's a really smart kid. I think he adds a lot to your team.
And being a former quarterback, you know he understands every aspect of the offense. That's pretty important as well. There you see the numbers, other offers from Cal, Miami, and Mississippi State. But again, this is a guy with a lot of upside and from a very, very good high school program too, Rodney. Cartersville's turned out a lot of players. Yeah,
and again, I think when you look at him, Gary, he's been a lifelong Georgia fan, but when he came over here, he was absolutely blown away with the Alabama program, and he told me that it really doesn't get any bigger than Alabama, so why waste any time? So he commits to the Tide.
Well, Alabama gets a lot of out-of-state commitments every year, and that's been the case since Nick Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa. But remember, it's still the University of Alabama. Recruiting starts in this state. And Alabama picking up a commitment on Friday from a guy that, quite honestly, did not have an impressive offer list. Jacksonville State, South Alabama, Wake Forest was his biggest offer until Alabama came calling, and Aniana linebacker Riley Cole jumped at the opportunity to play for the Crimson Tide. We talked about upside with the tight end commitment. Same thing with this young man. A frame to add a lot of weight, but he really stood out at Alabama's camp, and that's when he secured his offer.
Well, actually, at the
Nike camp, I'm sorry.
The Nike opening in Atlanta, he had a great showing there. Was the MVP this spring, so that was a tremendous honor for him, and then he did do well. You mentioned Gary at the Alabama camp. He did extremely well. Runs in the 4.6s and the 40. You know, he's 6'3", he's 210 pounds. Got an opportunity to gain some weight. A lot of these people that evaluate these combines and camps think he's one of the better coverage linebackers in the country. So I think, you know, when you look at Riley Cole, you kind of think along the lines of a Keith Holcomb, maybe even a Keaton Anderson.
Maybe even Vinny Sunseri.
Maybe even Vinny Sunseri. I mean, those guys have signed in recent classes, and I think maybe that's a fair comparison. But, you know, he's a guy that's got a lot of potential.
And he loves the game of football, from a community over there at Aniana in Northeast Alabama that loves football, and you can bet he'll lay it on the line for the Crimson Tide every Saturday. Well, Alabama's kicking game got a boost with the addition of a kicker. And, you know, Rodney, they don't ask me, thank goodness, but, you know, I'm not a fan of signing kickers to scholarships. I think you ought to provide about 10 of them in, try them out, and pick you a couple. But Eddie Pinero certainly grabbed the attention of Alabama coaches when he booted one through from 65 yards. So the kid from Miami has a big, big leg.
Yeah, he does. He's got a soccer background, Gary. His dad was a professional soccer player in Fort Lauderdale 20 years ago, and he was an outstanding soccer player, was MVP in the state of Florida, was a leading scorer as a soccer player. He did not really kick last year because ASA did not field the team. They were in their initial startup phase, and this year will be their first year. He might sit out this year and then report to Alabama in January 2016, which would give him 4 years of eligibility. But, you know, tremendously strong leg. You mentioned the 65-yard field goal that he kicked in camp. He also had the longest kickoff that particular day, an 85-yarder, had 4.2 hang time. You see his leg there. I mean,
85 yards, Rod?
Yeah, 85 yards in the air. And, you know, he's got a great leg. And it's hard to pass up a kid that's got that kind of leg because he can be an extremely valuable weapon. Would somebody call us about that? Let's give him 4 points for kicking it over 50 yards.
You're suddenly for that, huh?
I kind of changed my mind on that rule. Maybe that's not so bad after all.
All right, Florida offered. Miami was close to offering. And, again, this is a guy that Alabama had in camp, wanted to get on him. Again, his eligibility, how much he'll have, depends on whether he plays this season or not. But you can bet a lot of other schools are going to continue to recruit Eddie Pinheiro. Well, still much more coming up on this edition of TITV, including an update on a former Crimson Tide player looking for a new home in the National Football League. Also, we go camping with former Alabama defensive line standout Marcell Dareus. He talks about his new head coach with the Bills. And JaMychal Green lets us know his feelings on new Alabama basketball coach Avery Johnson. And coming up, we're welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, the information on your screen on how you can get in touch with us, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us, TITV@WVUATV.com, or reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. We're back after this. The long saga between the Philadelphia Eagles and former Alabama lineman Evan Mathis is over. The team released Mathis last week, and you know what? All over money. Evan wanted more of it. Didn't think that the 5-year, $25 million contract he signed a couple years ago was enough. The Eagles didn't want to give him any more. Hey, don't mess with Chip Kelly, because he'll cut you loose. Mathis, a Pro Bowler the last 2 years, but Philadelphia sent him packing. Now he is looking for a new team. Several teams are interested in his services, the Giants, Seahawks, Broncos, Raiders, among others. But he was going to make $5.5 million this year, $6 million next year. It's doubtful he's going to be able to get that much as a guard on the free agent market, but we shall see. Another former Crimson Tide star has been in the headlines this offseason, but not for the reason that he would like. Marcell Dareus is trying to put his suspension behind him that goes back to drug-related charges in Alabama last year. He was back in Birmingham over the weekend at his old stomping grounds, Huffman High School, holding his youth camp. Marcell mentioned that he has put his game suspension, as I said, behind him. He'll be ready to go in week 2. He spoke about how much it means to be able to give back to his community, and he also dished on his new head coach, the very flamboyant and controversial Rex Ryan.
I was in these guys' same shoes. I was in the same situation, and I just really wanted to give these guys something that I didn't have, and just they really taking to it, man. And the parents is all about it, and the community is all about it, and it's really just taking on life of its own now. Completely different from anything I ever had, especially coming from Coach Saban and every other guy that came along. Rex is just a really different guy. He really loved the game, knows the game, student of the game. Family is the game, so it's just just to be with this guy. He plays coach. He's just defense. He's just, man. He just happy-go-lucky, man. Nothing really bothers him. This is football, and we play it. We eat, breathe this thing, man. It's pretty overwhelming just to have this guy around, man. Just really loves and knows what he's doing.
I'd like to try to block him, Rod.
I wouldn't.
Man, he is a big dude. From one new coach to another, Avery Johnson held his first youth basketball camp this week in Tuscaloosa. The new Crimson Tide man in charge has had a busy couple of months since being named Alabama's new coach. AJ addressed the media at the camp, saying he's still looking to fill out his roster, and Alabama is working on completing its non-conference schedule. As far as his impressions of his new job, he's enjoying it, and the players are noticing their coach's attention to detail.
Just really selling our brand of what we're doing here with Buckle Your Seatbelt. So it's been great. It's a lot of work. There's not much time to sleep, but I don't sleep much anyway.
His workouts are very detailed. Like, I remember one of the first workouts we were talking about getting the ball into Jimmy, and I remember it. I was literally standing like 2 feet away from where he wanted me to stand, and he stopped the whole practice because he wanted me to get that extra spacing in order to give Jimmy, you know, the room he needs to operate. So it's very detailed as to how he's teaching us and training us in spacing and just the nuances of the game.
And while we're on the subject of Coach Johnson's basketball program, remember those We Want Bama shirts that Oregon fans came out with a few years ago? Well, they're getting their wish, but not in football. In basketball, reports indicate that the Tide and the Ducks are set to begin a home-and-home basketball series beginning this year in Tuscaloosa with a return trip to Eugene in 2017. The football guys didn't have a monopoly on youth camps this weekend. Former Bama hoop star JaMychal Green participated in a skills camp in his hometown of Montgomery. The Grizzlies forward was able to finish the year with a brand new contract. Green was more than happy to help the kids in his Montgomery community where he grew up. He was also able to tell us what he thinks of Avery Johnson.
I think that was a great pickup. That's a pickup I wasn't expecting for Avery Johnson to go there. So that's a great pickup. With him playing in the NBA and being the NBA coach and the player, it just, you have that much more to your team. You have that much. You have a kind of advantage. You know, you have a coach that's been there and he's been a player. So I think he's gonna do a great job.
Well, we're coming right back on Tider Insider TV, and when we return, Rodney and I will update you on the Tide's baseball players who were drafted by the major leagues this past week. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information on your screen. Rodney's anxious to give you some opinions and answer some questions, so you football fans, give us a call. Remember, SEC Media Day starts July 13th, so it's just right around the corner. We'll be back right after this with more Tider Insider TV. Last week was a big one for some Alabama baseball players, 2 in particular, who have already signed major league contracts. Here's Mikey White signing with the Oakland Athletics, the Crimson Tide shortstop, signing there at his old high school, Spain Park. He was their 2nd-round pick. He'll head to rookie ball in the Oakland system. Here's a full list of where Tide players went in the draft. Casey Houston has already signed. He was a 3rd-rounder. Gilbo, Overstreet, Carter, and Salem all drafted. The 6 draftees, the most by any school in the state. UAB was next with 3 players drafted. All right, Rodney, they're lined up for you tonight on the phones. Let's get right to our hotline and check in with our buddy Harold there in Anniston. Harold, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, Gary?
You know it. Tell me.
Hey, Rodney, I want to ask a question, man. I see we signed a 2-way quarterback, man, dual threat. I was wondering, man, we're going to get back to that physical game of running, man, because I feel like I like to throw a little bit every now and then, but I think we need to get back to that, just out physicaling people like we used to, man.
Real quickly, Harold, Jalen Hurts is who you're talking about. Has not signed yet. He's just a commitment, but I want to clarify that, but go ahead, Rodney.
I think so, Harold. I think they're definitely looking to get back to what you said, talking about the physical style of play. I mean, you look at the offensive linemen they've signed over the last couple of years. I think those guys are really starting to develop, and it's going to allow them to do that. I think when you look at the recruiting this year, you look at 2 commitments they have from interior players, Deontay Brown and Chris Owens out of the state of Texas, really strong interior, powerful players. I think that's an indication of what Alabama wants to do offensively. They're going to really line up and try to be able to run the football. And I think, he was talking about Jalen Hurts. I mean, this kid I really like him.
Yeah.
I think he's an outstanding player. People look at him and see his feet and his ability to move and create and the things he can do, but he's really a very talented passer.
Another one of these guys that can wing it, and as we've talked about already on the program, coach's son, which
absolutely
tells you he knows the game. All right, Harold, thanks for the phone call. Let's go to Moundville and talk with Dale. Hey, Dale, what's up, man?
Hey, Gary. I'd like to talk about Jacob Coker. All I hear is a lot of fans talk about Alabama don't have a quarterback coming in this year. It would be good if we had one. But when I see Jake Coker, I see a guy who looks like with a good game plan could be a real gunslinger, and I think that he'd be a really good runner. I think his decision-making will get a lot better. And also, I think last year he pushed Blake Sims to the limit. And I just wondered what your thoughts were. Is he underrated?
Dale, you make some good points there. Rodney, let's say this. He certainly should have a lot of incentive to prove people wrong, because a lot of people are questioning whether or not he can get the job done. That is the truth.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think just his presence here and the fact that he was coming here, Dale, certainly did push Blake Sims. And, I think it clearly helped Blake Sims. And I think when you look at Jacob Cochler, when you're talking about talent, I mean, this guy has all the physical tools. He has great size. He has a tremendous arm. And again, I think you're right. I think his decision-making does have to improve. He has to become consistent. He has to make plays on a consistent basis. And he also has to eliminate plays that will get you beat. That's the first and foremost thing that he has to do. If he can manage things that way, then I agree with you. I think he's got a chance to have a great year for Alabama. And, you know, if he can do that, Gary, there's no telling how far this team could go.
All right. Thanks, Dale, for the phone call. Gerald in Cottondale called, did not want to go on air, but he left his question, Rodney, a basketball question, wanting to know if Avery Johnson is going to bring in any more players for this coming season. The answer, I think, is yes. Gerald, Alabama has already signed 3, but they've got some roster spots. I think maybe 1 or 2 available, and just going to be really careful. There aren't a lot of great high school players from this past year that graduated that are still left, but there's some fifth-year transfer players that are possibilities, junior college players that might graduate and be eligible for the next coming season. So I do think you'll see Alabama add 1, maybe 2 more players for this roster in 2015-2016. We'll certainly keep an eye on that. And we want to keep an eye on the phones because we want some more phone calls. We got more to come here on TITV, including an Alabama football player with a big honor in another sport. And more of your phone calls, as I just alluded to, emails and tweets. Again, the information on your screen on how you can get in touch with us. And phone lines are available right now, so give us a call. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the award-winning Tider Insider TV. We'll return after this. Alabama fans are hoping that one day he earns All-American honors on the football field. But Tony Brown, the rising sophomore cornerback from Texas for the football squad, already has that honor in track. He was one of 3 Tide track athletes who earned All-American honors. That tells you how fast that he is. And, you know, he's got size, too. Has the potential to be a great cornerback in the SEC. All right, Rod, let's head right back to the phone lines. Our buddy CB right here in Tuscaloosa is with us. Hey, CB, what's going on?
Don't know, man. How y'all doing tonight?
Very well.
Look, we could play. Why couldn't we play 2 quarterbacks? We got 5 on scholarship. I mean, throw them in there and see who, you know, these people on the sidelines can play. Give them a shot.
Well, CB, you know, Nick Saban generally does not play 2 quarterbacks. I mean, he did 1 year at LSU. I think it was 2004, and because he had to, I think they had some injuries and so forth and inconsistencies. But, you know, generally he tries to find a quarterback and stick with him. You know, we'll see. Maybe this year's a little bit different. I think possibly you could see 2 play it, or at least 1 get some spot duty to kind of gain some experience as they move along, Gary, or in the event of an injury or whatever. But I think that, you know, we'll probably still follow that same pattern of playing 1 quarterback for the most part.
That has been his MO, but maybe this is a year setting up that they might try a couple, at least early in the season. It'll be interesting to watch, CB. All right, let's go over to Coker and talk with Leroy. Hey, Leroy, what's going on, my friend?
I was wondering, Gary, was this going to be Lane Kiffin's last year at the university? I heard this would be his last year.
Well, Leroy, it's a good question. You know this. Lane Kiffin wants to be a head coach again. But I also think Lane Kiffin recognizes with his resume that he's already put together, coaching here at Alabama, under Nick Saban, playing for championships, he can take his time and make sure he gets a job where he can win the way he wants to win. So I think he's going to be particular. I don't think he's just going to take the first offer that comes along. If that had been the case, he might have already could have left.
Well,
so.
and it might not be a head coaching job. I mean, there's a good chance that he could end up in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, which he almost did last year. I mean, there was some talk about it anyway, Leroy. And again, it's really, Gary and I can't answer that question because nobody really can predict the future like that. But you know, it would not surprise me if Lane Kiffin had an opportunity that he took after this year.
All right, Leroy, thanks for the call. Good question. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. All right, got another caller on the line. Katarina, I didn't catch who that was in my ear. So, William in Saginaw, another one of our good regular callers. William, what's up, man?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk just a moment about Coach Saban going for, like, these kids in the state of Alabama from a small town, giving them an opportunity to play at the University of Alabama, just living out their dreams. And it's something I thought about when I was in school, but it's great to see Coach Saban doing something like that, and I'd just like to hear y'all's comments on that.
I agree. I love it when Alabama takes in-state kids. But the thing I love the most about it is they believe that he's a good football player, first and foremost. The fact that he's an in-state kid is important, but that's not the only reason they're taking him. And I think what it says, Rodney, is everybody says 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. a lot of times they recruit guys that are rated 5 stars, but they're going to recruit and offer the guys they think can help them win football games regardless of how many stars they have next to their name. And that's, this is proof of that.
That's it. And I agree with him, the caller, the fact that I do think it's important to get the best players from your state. And sometimes those guys aren't necessarily, as Gary said, have all those stars attached to their names. But, again, I think that what Nick Saban wants to do is he wants to get the best players that fit into their system, and it may be a little bit different than other schools, what they need. So I think that's important too. And again, you don't just take in-state players because they're in-state players. I mean, I think Alabama's done that before. They've loaded up on in-state players and they weren't successful recruiting the better players outside of the state, and I think that hurts your program too. So I think you have to have a balance there.
There is a balance. All right, BT, we're short on time. What you got for us, man?
Hey, Gary and Ronnie, I want to ask who's going to be the candidate for the when Coach Saban? I mean, that's a question for the future.
About 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years,
Hey, BT, we really don't want to think about that one right now. Seriously, I know it's a question that a lot of Alabama fans are pondering, but I think Nick Saban's got, as you said, several more years of coaching in front of him before we have to worry about that.
It's really hard. Certainly don't want to deal with that. Hey, Bill Battle doesn't want to deal with it, so it's difficult for us to answer.
How about we wait a couple more years, BT, and see what happens with Coach Saban here in Tuscaloosa. Hey, great phone calls tonight. We appreciate it, as always. You help make the show what it is. More to come on Tider Insider TV. When we come back, some positive news for a former Crimson Tide player battling cancer. That story's next, so stay with us. It's not a surprise to those who have watched him at Alabama and in his couple of years with the Seattle Seahawks. Jesse Williams is a tough guy. Seahawks tackle has been cleared to resume light workouts just 2 weeks after surgery to remove one of his kidneys after he was diagnosed with cancer. He watched Seattle take part in OTAs on Thursday. Great young man. Loved covering him. He is a positive thinker, and we'll see him on the field in the NFL. I'm confident of that. All right, it's dinner time tonight. 69 South, Dickey's Barbecue. Rodney and the crew will be down there. I can't make it tonight, but great barbecue at Dickey's. Looking forward to that. And next week, I'm on vacation. So Jen Chapman will be in this chair, who I'm told is more attractive than me. I don't know that I see it.
She's real popular. I know that.
She'll be with you next week. And don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 after the news, or you can get it at WVUA23.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Good night.